It is estimated by the FBI that there are around 25 to 50 murder cases that are currently active within the United States alone. However, the global number is much higher. Largely, these perpetrators only work behind the shadows, not wanting their identity known by police. However, over the years, there have been brazen assailants that have insisted on stepping into the limelight by contacting the police or press, usually through letters. Today, we'll be exploring 10 cases that remain unsolved despite years of investigations, where these serial killers have taunted police by ways of letters which could potentially lead to their capture. These are 10 bizarre unsolved mysteries with written clues. Number 10. Freeway Phantom. On April the 25th, 1971 in Maryland, 13-year-old Carol Spinks was sent to buy groceries at the local 7-Eleven, which was half a mile from her house. On her way back, Carol was abducted. 6 days later, her body was discovered. 1 month later, on July the 8th, 1971, another girl named Darlenia Johnson, 16, was abducted while on her way to a summer job. Her body was later found 11 days after her disappearance, only 15 feet away from where the first victim was found. On July the 27th, 1971, just 19 days after the second abduction, 10-year-old Brenda Crockett never returned home after going to the shops. 3 hours after she disappeared, the phone rang, which was answered by her 7-year-old sister, who had been told to wait at home while her parents were out searching. Brenda was on the other line crying and said, "A white man picked me up and I'm heading home in a cab." Brenda told her sister that she believed she was in Virginia, before abruptly saying bye and hanging up. A short time later, the phone rang again and was this time answered by the boyfriend of Brenda's mother. It was Brenda again, and she merely repeated what she said in the last telephone call, indicating she was alone in a house with a white male. The boyfriend asked Brenda to have the man come to the phone. Heavy footsteps were heard in the background. Brenda said, "I'll see you," and hung up. A few hours later, a hitchhiker discovered Brenda's body. Overall, during 1971 and 1972, a total of 6 African American girls were found raped and murdered. The girls were aged between 10 and 19 years of age, most of the victims having gone out on errands and never returned. Dubbing the killer Freeway Phantom, the last of the murderer's victims, Brenda Woodward, was found with a chilling note stuffed in her pocket, which read, "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women. I will admit the others when you catch me, if you can." Over the years, the police have had hundreds of suspects. These included gang members, which had been responsible for numerous rapes and abductions in the area. However, they did not have any solid evidence to arrest them. However, there is one suspect police have the eye on, Robert Askins. Robert has been charged with rape and 3 counts of homicide. The 58-year-old had spent time in St. Elizabeth's Hospital and had been convicted of poisoning a prostitute with cyanide in 1938. 20 years later, in 1958, Askins was freed. After police searched his home in 1977, they discovered a bizarre note in the desk drawer which contained the word tantamount, which was found in the pocket of Brenda Woodward. Police later found that Askin often used this as his workplace. However, after searching Askin's house and digging up his backyard, they didn't have enough evidence to charge him. To this day, the case of the Freeway Phantom is still unsolved. Number 9. Gary Grant Jr. On Thursday, January the 12th, 1984, in Atlantic City, New Jersey, 7-year-old Gary Grant Jr. had the day off school due to his teacher's conference. During breakfast with his mum, he mentioned that he had an appointment at 2:30 p.m. However, he kept the details secret. At around noon, Gary went outside to play, stating he'd be back home at around 4 p.m. However, Gary did not return at this time. His mother started to panic. Friends of Gary said that he'd left for home at 4:30. After 2 more hours had passed, Gary's father, a police detective, called for an extensive search. The following afternoon, Gary's body was discovered in a vacant lot near a warehouse. On January the 4th, 1986, nearly 2 years after his murder, a message had been written on the side of a police car during the early morning, which read, "Gary Grant is dead. I am living. Another will die on the 1st of December 1986 if all goes right." A second message was found again, a few weeks later, this time written into a sidewalk, which read, "Gary Grant Jr. lives. I still killed him. Son of a pick officer. Payback is an MF." They began interviewing locals in the area, including a Carl Boo Mason, a developmentally disabled 12-year-old friend. He stated the two had planned to meet on Thursday, but Gary never showed up. However, other witnesses on the day stated that Carl and Gary did in fact meet on that Thursday. Carl was then questioned further by the police, though Carl insisted he had not murdered his friend Gary. He signed the confession believing he would get to go home. Carl was charged with Gary's murder and sent to a juvenile detention centre. However, a month later, Carl's confession was seen as not admissible evidence, and charges against him were dropped. The case is still unsolved. However, a bizarre phone call was made to 911 by an unknown man in 1986.
Police and fire.
Yes. Is it possible for me to collect a reward on my own self for the murder of Gary Grant? No, well, how's if I did it myself and I want to collect the own reward?
If you did it?
Yeah.
Well, suppose I hook you into the Detective Bureau.
No, it's okay.
I mean, that's on the...
Make sure that, no, that's not a crank call. You'll never be able to catch him.
The caller was never identified, and the case of Gary Grant Jr. remains cold. Number 8. Traci Nielsen. On January the 5th, 1981, Traci Nielsen was celebrating her 21st birthday when she was stabbed to death in her Oklahoma apartment. Authorities believe that Nielsen had been running errands at a local grocery store before she was murdered. Multiple unanswered calls had been made to Nielsen from loved ones wishing her a happy birthday. However, she did not pick up. Her body was found by her husband, a medical student, after he returned home from studying at around 5 p.m. She had not been sexually assaulted. Strangely, there was no sign of a struggle or a break-in. Only one item was missing, a keychain with Traci's name on it, which police believe was stolen as a souvenir. A number of clues were discovered at the crime scene. A cable ticket receipt from that day shows work was completed at Nielsen's apartment on the day of the slaying, and a single fingerprint, which a match has never been found. The cable receipts showed that work had been done to the property along with Traci's address and had been signed with initials of the bottom stating that the work had been completed before noon. However, this evidence has never been connected to a specific person. Authorities have completed new DNA testing on some of the evidence. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation stated, "For decades, agents have worked to identify the owner of a cable trouble assignment ticket book. The last ticket in the book is for work at Traci's home at 11:51 the morning she was murdered. On the bottom left corner of the book is a box for the employer's name. We want to identify the 3 letters written in that box." To this day, the case of Traci Nielsen still remains cold. David Stone. David Stone was a successful stock market analyst who was a big believer in the New Age movement as he sought spiritual guidance. According to Deputy Sheriff Bill Cavalier, the investigating officer on Halloween of 1988, Stone had walked into the desert and was seen several times that day claiming that he was looking for the beast before vanishing in the desert. 5 days later, Stone's car was eventually found by police abandoned along Highway 80. However, Stone didn't just leave without a trace. Several clues were mysteriously found after his disappearance which connected it to the New Age movement. The first clue was that his car was found near pyramid-shaped mountains, and pyramids were important symbols in the movement. The search for Stone led investigators to his trail, which was headed northwest from his car, and searchers then found a pyramid of rocks surrounded by a triangle. The following day, David's watch was discovered next to another pyramid 3 miles to the north, and searchers found a Fibonacci sequence used by stock market analysts written in the sand. However, instead of 21 ending the sequence, the number ended in 18. Some believe this was Stone trying to signal for help. Finally, bloodhounds tracked his scent to another location on Highway 80, 30 miles north of where his car was found. While searching through Stone's car, bizarre items had been found, including a mysterious business card and an even stranger note that read, "The word is in the safe." 6 knives in Rob's room. Use buys your tea and use takes your chances. Halloween. Halloween was the day that David Stone mysteriously vanished, and still nobody knows what happened to Stone or why he ventured out into the desert that day. 2 years later, in February 1992, 2 hikers found Stone's body, and there was no evidence of foul play in his death. His case still remains a mystery. John Hill. On Monday, November the 22nd, 1976, located in Ottumwa, Iowa, 2 men discovered the body of 51-year-old John Robert Hill. The man was face down in a small room located at the Ottumwa's laundrette, which Hill owned and operated. Authorities were quickly called and found that Hill had been stabbed 21 times and shot. Next to Hill's right hand was a gun, which police say had been fired 5 times. 5 bullet holes were near the front door, however, only 4 bullets were found in the building. Police believe Hill had died while fighting his attacker. Hill had been robbed, with hundreds of dollars taken from his wallet. On the wall of the crime scene, someone, presumably the murderer, had written 2 words in blood. One was either black or lack, while the other was older. After roughly 1 week of investigations, 2 suspects emerged. However, the evidence wasn't enough to stand up in court, and the police were never able to make an arrest. 33 years later, in 2009, John Hill's murder was listed under the Cold Case Unit's new website, with hopes to solve the case using latest advancements in DNA technology. However, to this day, no one has ever been charged with his murder. Number 5. Zodiac Killer Cipher. The Zodiac Cipher was mailed to 3 Bay Area newspapers, with each containing 1/3 of a single cipher. The author of 3 ciphers threatened to go on an all-night killing spree if the papers didn't publish the coded messages on the front page. All the papers obliged. Just 1 week later, a schoolteacher solved the cipher, which read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. Sometimes it gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all the people I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow me down or stop my collection of slaves for my afterlife." Number 4. Zodiac Killer's Letters. A cab driver was shot dead in San Francisco on October the 13th, 1969. The next night, the letter was found. The letter was found to be connected to the previous Zodiac cipher sent to the newspapers and included a piece of the victim's bloody shirt from the murder the night before. The following letter was the one that made the Zodiac Killer infamous, threatening to attack a school bus, stating he planned to shoot out the front tyre and pick off the kiddies as they came bouncing out. The letter also boasted about how the killer eluded police as they searched for him during the aftermath of the taxi driver's murder, saying they were goofing off rather than trying to find the shooter. The following letter read, "The San Francisco police could have caught me last night if they'd searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly, waiting for me to come out of cover." Number 3. Xmen of New Orleans. The city of New Orleans were in terror during the years of May 1918 to October 1919, thanks to a vicious serial killer, eventually nicknamed the Axeman. As you can guess, the name was derived from the murderer's weapon of choice. This serial killer would kick in the doors or smash windows into people's homes in the middle of the night. They would then locate an axe or razor found in the house and hack or stab his sleeping victims. With one murder that took place on March 13, 1919, a letter written by the Axeman was published in several New Orleans newspapers threatening more attacks. However, homes where jazz music was played would not be targeted. Thankfully, no attacks occurred that night. However, the letter clearly shows a lack of remorse the Axeman had towards his victims. The following letter read, "Undoubtedly, you Orleans think of me as the most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will, I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the Angel of Death." Number 2. The original Nightstalker. On December 1977, the editor of the Sacramento Bee, the Sacramento Mayor's Office and the KVIE6 TV station received an horrific letter titled Excitement's Crave. The letter was written as a poem by an individual claiming to be the original Nightstalker. This unidentified serial killer and rapist committed 50 rapes in Northern California and murdered 12 people in Southern California during 1979 to 1986. Other nicknames included the East Area Rapist, the Diamond Knot Killer, and since 2013, the Golden State Killer. For years, the crimes changed so drastically that the police were not aware at the time that they were committed by the same person, until DNA made the connection in the early 2000s. The original Nightstalker was notorious for conducting surveillance on his victims before planning his attacks. The murderer would often enter his victims' homes weeks before the attacks to hide rope and other tools that would later be used during his deadly attacks. He sent a mysterious letter to the Sacramento Bee claiming how he enjoyed targeting victims, particularly couples, and wasn't deterred by tough-looking men. In fact, he sought them out. The letter read, "To make a movie of my life that will pay for my planned exile, just now I'd like to add the wife of a mafia lord to my file." Number 5. Jack the Ripper. From Hell was an infamous letter sent by Jack the Ripper. This serial killer is one of the most famous murderers ever to have lived. It is believed he murdered and mutilated at least 5 prostitutes in the impoverished Whitechapel district of East London between late August and early November 1888. The murderer was named Jack the Ripper after a letter claimed to be written by the serial killer was sent to the police. However, modern criminologists believe the letter to be fraudulent and claim that it's more likely the work of a journalist to help boost up the story. A number of letters were sent to police claiming to be written by Jack the Ripper himself. However, most are considered the works of trolls and not the actual murderer, all except one, addressed to the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, George Lusk, and postmarked October 15, 1888. The letter was accompanied by half a kidney, which was claimed by the author to be taken from a Jack the Ripper victim, which cooperated with the 4th woman where her kidneys had been removed. Medical evaluation at the time determined the kidney found was in fact human. The author of the letter claimed they made a meal out of the remaining half. The letter states, "From hell, Mr. Lusk, sir, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you. The other piece I fried and ate it. It was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out, if you could wait a while longer. Signed, Catch Me When You Can, Mr. Lusk."